right, everybody. My favorite fun math shows, everybody. We got Ron McPherson with us. He is the, as I like to call him, the money man for Knox County Schools. He's going to help me try to understand a little bit more about the current formula, but not really. We really want to talk about the future formula, because at least to me, it seems like it's inevitable at this point. So we'll talk about that, among other things. ESSER funds are also on my list of things to chat about, because I'm curious where all this COVID money has gone and going and that kind of thing. So we're almost in agreement at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You can go to our website, almostinagreement.com. While you're there, please check out my Voter Guide 22. That Voter Guide 22 is going to be all my interviews with all the guests that I've done, what they're running for, what district they're in, all those kind of details, as well as links to KGIS and Knox County Election Commission. So if you don't know if you're registered or not, you can check on that. If you don't know what district you're in, you can figure that kind of stuff out too. So this is our super reference to try to give you as much help as we can, so that you can make sure you're ready to go vote and stuff like that here. And I guess starting this weekend, next week, we got the early voting start. So it's happening sooner than you think. So anyway, we're almost in agreement. Go to your favorite podcast provider and give us a follow there. Give us a great review. Tell your friends about us, all that kind of stuff. So Ron McPherson, Knox County Schools. Here we go. Ronnie, my buddy, how are you?
I'm doing well, Seth. Hope you are.
Good. It's been, I don't know, it's the further I get into this, the more I kind of think I might have made a bad life choice, trying to figure all this stuff out. Because there's so much, like, I've made this, there's the state level stuff is just too much, period. End of story. I mean, you're talking, sorry, bad screen thinking here. You're talking, 1,000+ bills a session. As much as the website is pretty decent, when you go to the state website to try to look at what's going on, it's at best, it's a decent summary, but for the most part, it's a summary off the original translation before all the amendments and all that kind of different stuff. So trying to keep up with it has just gotten way above my head. And so this year we've got probably, in my opinion at least, and I think you probably agree, this might be the biggest structural change to how the state of Tennessee works with schools that we've done in 20 plus years or so. So I don't know. Let's pause that for a second. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about ESSER for just a little bit first, and where and what's going on with the COVID bill money and getting the kids back in school. Because I talk about it on the show all the time. My eldest, we got a tutor for at the beginning of this year. He's been doing great with her. She's been helping out a ton. His grades reflect it, and it's awesome. And so if this is a service that is providable to other parents, I want to know how to get that in, or maybe I could supplement what I'm paying out of pocket with some stuff from the schools instead of having to pay all of it out of pocket, that kind of stuff. So what do we know about ESSER funds right now?
Yeah, well, so, the best one to talk about this actually is our director of ESSA, Dexter Murphy. I don't know if we probably need to set up a time up with Dexter. I know he's pretty covered up with this too, because he's really managing all of these funds. I can tell you ESSER 3, and I was actually trying to find something here that's kind of a plan summary that might help. Let me bring that over. So the ESSER 3 money is right at $114 million. And here's the thing with ESSER. This is one-time money. It has to be spent by September 2024. There are really four primary, and I'm talking about ESSER 3. There was a 1 and then there was a 2. We used some of that money for virtual learning to purchase student devices, and that's to embark on our one-to-one initiative where we put a device in the hands of every student. That will need to be ongoing, so we'll have to, at some point, get that into the budget, because those are ongoing costs with replacement cycles and all of that. So ESSER 1 and 2, that's where a lot of that went. So now I think when people talk about ESSER, they're talking about this $114 million batch. Yeah. And this is really where it has to all be strategically implemented, but this is primarily to overcome obstacles to learning that were disrupted, where learning was disrupted by the pandemic. And so largely with ESSER, there's four priorities, and foundation. So we're calling the first priority foundational academic skills. The second one is effective educators, and that's about hiring, getting the right people in place, trying to hire continue to hire teachers, effective teachers, and to make sure that we have, the right people in place and so forth. And then post-high school readiness, that's one, the components of all of these. I'll try to get Dexter, if you'd like. I'll try to get Dexter on here, and he can talk Esther as long as you wanted. He's really mired in this. And so it's basically overcoming obstacles to learning. And so a lot of this, Seth, for instance, 240 some odd tutoring positions we need. Right. And so a lot of these would be personnel. Tutors are the big one here. But there's also technology here. And so all of that, that kind of gets into the lane of curriculum and instruction. So I can kind of talk about it on the edges. Right. But while all of that involved, and I can send you some information too. I was, I know we were, primarily where we were going to touch on Esther, so I'm probably not the best guy to talk about it. I can just tell you, more than anything, it's about establishing interventions from learning loss due to the pandemic. Right.
So similar, or like kind of in the same thing. We had a job fair last weekend, 2 weekends ago.
Yes.
How did that turn out? Did we get a good? Do we get some good applicants in?
We did. We actually were able to hire 22. We actually made 22 offers that very day, and all 22 accepted. All right. So yeah, and so we continue to do that. I will tell you though, it is a challenge. We are finding that it's a challenge with respect to hiring positions.
I can relate 100%. We are short 3 staffers at my place right now. And we haven't even gotten applications. We're asking for applications, and we can't even get applications at this point.
Yeah, it's like going to a restaurant and there's, 7 tables available, but you have to wait an hour to be seated because there's just not enough servers, and cooks, and all that. So we're seeing it everywhere. So this is actually, we're going to have to really strategize on filling the positions. But anyway. So it's about maintaining technology investments. It's about a teacher pipeline, and we have done some kind of out of the box things with respect to that. We have like what we call a grow your own initiative. It's like teacher candidates where they actually, and we're in partnership. We're going to enter into a partnership with Relay. It's like Relay School. And where teachers, we would actually hire candidates who would, as they come on board, we would place them in a tutoring or an educational assistant position, and they would do the Relay coursework. They would have a mentor teacher, and after the first year, they will have earned a teaching license. And so then, after completion of that first year, we would then place them as a teacher of record. They would continue their coursework, and then they would earn their master's through that. So really, it's a pipeline that they come in as an educational assistant or a tutor, then they become a teacher of record, and then after 2 years, they've earned their master's. So it's really, and they're earning more money as a result of that.
Okay, so I mean, I guess the question at play here on teachers, at least, is it a lack of teachers total, or is it we can incentivize enough teachers to come work in our district? Like, are there enough teachers on the planet that we could get what we need? We just don't have the right benefits and pay structure and other items in place to attract said teachers, or there just aren't that many teachers anymore?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think we have a competitive pay structure. We've made strides over the last couple of years. We're probably like 32nd or something in the state. Still not great in average teacher pay. Probably, and so we've like the last 3 years we've given 4% raises 2 of the last 3 years. That's unprecedented, I think. Right. So we're making strides there. We've actually made some strides in the benefits as well. The benefits are really good. It's just a matter of the how much we as employers can contribute to that. So we're trying to make strides into that as well. It just seems like it's just this national. We're in the grips of this national phenomena where we're always looking for positions. I mean, I can tell you, right now we have significant numbers of educational assistant positions that are open, custodial positions. See, even some of these support positions, we made strides in increasing the salaries to try to incent folks to come and work for Knox County.
I could tell you for a fact, I don't think you could pay me enough to go clean up after a bunch of high school kids.
I hear you.
It's not worth. I don't think I can handle it. I'm not man enough for that job.
I get it.
But okay, so then let's shift it to what we actually planned on talking about is the new funding formula. As I've tried, I've tried as hard as I tried with BEP to try to get my hands on understanding this thing, and so I was watching one of the releases from the State Board of Education on it, and they had like a pyramid kind of thing going on. It's like every student in the state gets X. And then depending on whether there's intervention required or mental issues or other issues at play, adds to the base. And so the first question for me, because I think it was like 5198 or something like that, was the base. Is that the base that the state is?
I've seen different amounts. I've seen over 6,000. I've seen different amounts. And so the reason that's not official yet is because it would still require legislative approval. That's bouncing around in the committees and has been for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. The earliest anything would go into effect at this point would be a year from now. Right. So with the upcoming school year, we're still under, the old BEP model, which is about 30 years old. But yeah, you've got the basic components correct. So, and again, Seth, we, like all other districts, we have lots and lots of questions. And so I will say this, that from all indications, it would appear that this is TISA or TISA, I've heard it referred to both ways, but that this new funding model would generate significantly more funding than the BEP would, right? So the state is saying they're going to invest $1 billion or so. And when you factor in that the state has about 1 million students, you can do the math. That's about $1,000 per kid. Knox County Schools has 58,000 students. So if you just calculate that out without any adjustments, that comes to like $58 million. I mean, that's additional. That's a whopping amount.
I mean, it's 10% of current, right?
Yeah. So we have received information that if TISA were in place and if these factors continue to be in place and if it happened this year, there's a lot of ifs, right? That the number, it's like $54 million additional funding. So that does equate pretty much to if you just do the simple math on the amount the state said they're going to put into it. Here's the thing, though. Anytime I see this, anything on paper that says additional funding, I want to proceed with caution. We've told our board members that we are cautiously optimistic with respect to additional dollars because in that additional amount, there's still some unanswered questions we have. Is it $54 million on paper, or is it literally $54 million in additional funding? How much of that would be a local match that would be required to be made? And what would that local match be? So you can see we've still got a lot of questions. I will just say though, on the surface, if it's that amount, that would be a game changer. But I would also issue this caveat that the numbers we are seeing in future years that might be associated with these dollars, that the growth does not appear to be very significant. So immediately, if you raise the floor in funding and you implement all of these wonderful initiatives and all of the things and supports we would like to do, but yet the sustainability of funding is insufficient to cover inflationary growth in subsequent years, then suddenly that becomes a huge problem. Right. So that's, again, those are some of the concerns we have and that we voiced. But to get back to the basic structure, yeah, you're right. It's like this. It's a base amount, and with the BEP funding model, it's about 30 years old. It's called a resource-based allocation, and we've probably talked about it here on your show too before, but. So it's pretty much enrollment ratio driven. So you have X number of the way the state looks at it. You have X number of first graders. say, okay, for every 20 first graders, you get X number of positions. And then they take those positions and say, okay, you'll be funded at this salary. It's not really what teachers make, but it's the number that the state sets. And so anything over and above that, you have to make up. And so there's there's really some fundamental flaws in the model itself, because kids, we've got 90 schools and kids don't come in like, package it. We have 20 first graders at this school, and we have 60 first graders at the next school. They don't come in packages of 20.
Right.
And so
you get 22 and 58, but you only get funding for 4 teachers.
Yeah, and you get part in it, and even at that, it's just partial funding, because through the BEP model, there's this fiscal capacity component.
Right.
And so they will look at Knox County or any other county, and then we'll say, well,
you can afford more, so we'll give you less.
Yeah, that's right. You have the ability to pay X number, and so that's, you'll have to fund that difference. So
that brings me to something.
It's based on the.
Go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say it's based on that fiscal capacity index is primarily just based on a municipality's ability.
Right.
To support education from its own local tax base, not necessarily its willingness, but its ability.
Right. And well, that brings me to one of the things I got in one of the emails I got when I started looking into school funding and stuff like that. It's a group called the Sycamore Institute, and it's a whole letter talking about the maintenance of effort requirements.
Right.
And so as I understood that, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding it, but as I understood that is like, so this year's budget was $600 million-ish, right?
Well, if you roll all the budgets together, probably, yes. The general purpose budget, general purpose like 540, 542,
okay,
something like that.
I'm going to be lazy. We're getting deep enough in the math, so we'll say 600.
Gotcha.
And
600.
The state paid what, 320-ish?
No, probably not that much. I would say probably less. I'd have to go back and do the numbers, but it's probably
less or more than 50.
Slightly less than 50%.
Okay, so the state paid $280, which means Knox County paid $320 out of pocket on this thing.
Right.
And so as I understand this maintenance of effort deal is, so let's say the state all of a sudden is now kicking in $400 total. The county still has to kick in at least $320, if not $320 plus some fixed percentage that's built into the program, because they have to at least do what they did last year or more. Is that the general idea?
Well, okay. Yeah, they right. So basically, yeah. So the from local sources, it can't be diminished into the next year. So it's all based on a budgetary level, and if the budget is X dollars from local sources, then the following year it can't be less. I will say this though, with regards to the local match. There's actually a required minimum local match.
Right.
Without regards to maintenance of effort. There's a required, which is kind of another component in TISA. Like, what will that look like for certain districts? Knox County, though, Knox County contributes so much more than the required local match or the minimum local match that the state requires. That I think probably. I'm speculating here. I don't think that would be as challenging for us because we're so far over and above what we are required to do.
Right. Well, I guess the real question in it for me, this is a politics question that has nothing necessarily to do with you, but if, the state is actually going to kick in significantly more for education and that the county can then, air quotes, reduce the percentage of their total budget that's going to the schools, then they can, because this is a politics question for the people running right now, because this is something that they potentially will be looking at during their terms. Because if, what do we say? The school system's like 60-something% of the total county budget, something like that.
Yeah, and that's largely driven from, but that includes BEP. So
right.
The county budget, and so that includes, a couple $100 million for BEP. And sales taxes, and
right.
and some from property taxes.
But I guess what I'm getting at is if this maintenance effort thing doesn't necessarily require, it's a little bit different or whatever, but we could still, by current standards, keep $600 million going to the schools, give or take. But 400 of that's from the state instead of the 2 and some changes. We now have this $200 extra $1 million that the county can spend at will. And again, that's why it's a political question to me. It's like, well, if this opens up, and I'm trying to understand the mechanics of if that's the case, or if this maintenance of effort thing will keep that.
Maintenance of effort should be the buffer. You're right.
Okay.
So the maintenance of effort is essentially prohibits counties from doing that, right? So, it's like, oh, great, we've got a lot more state money, so now we can redirect local dollars going to the district. I'm not saying the county would do that,
right.
but redirect local dollars into other governmental areas. But that's why the maintenance of effort provision is there, is to guard against something like that.
Okay, yeah, like I said, that was what I was trying to figure out, because the way this article read was like, it was because this article was more about, yes, the state may kick in more, but it may not reduce how much you have to pay locally. And it kind of felt
that's correct.
It kind of felt like almost a negative, and it's like, well, to me that sounds like we get an automatic. If the state pays more, we're going to get a significant bump in our total budget, which we should be able to then go do some of the things we've been wanting to do.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. I will say for smaller districts, which would still be under the maintenance of effort provision, but I will say for some of the smaller districts, it's maybe only contributing. And again, this is kind of a separate issue for maintenance of effort, but it does tie into it in some ways. There will be so if the state gives more money through the new model,
mm-hmm.
there no doubt that the local requirement will increase with that.
Right.
And we're significantly above what the minimum local requirement is. Some of the I will say some of the poorer counties, this could hurt, because if they're if right now, if they're kind of at that baseline of the minimum match, and then suddenly they're required to give more, where are they going to get those sources? I don't think that's going to be our problem, but
right.
some other districts across the state, it could be, and that could be potentially a hang up in how how the vote comes down.
Yeah. Because again, trying to understand some of the other portions at play. Because again, I think this is now when we rewind and talk about what we, at least as of right now, think is going to happen if it comes in. Do we think it's actually going to be, for Knox County, a significant increase in state funding for schools?
I believe it. Yes, I believe yes. Now, exactly how much that would be, again, that's what we're trying to get our arms around.
Right.
And we're discussions with the state. But yeah, I would say we're hopeful. Yes. Okay. I don't want to definitively say yes, because we see how many twists and turns this thing can take.
And I think realistically, to me, this is the step one in the 17-step process for some sort of voucher system, which is a Governor Lee issue. And he's not been shy about talking about it. And, it makes sense to me. It's like, so it's a student-led model. Each student gets X. And if you don't spend that at Knox County schools, then you can spend it at a school of your choice, air quotes. Because then that comes back out of the budget that we're talking about for the 24 or 25 year or something like that, whenever this actually would kick in.
Potentially, I guess that's another question we have. And there seems to be another question that's kind of circulating here amongst all the districts is, okay, currently with BEP, it's a funding model. It's not a budgeting mandate, right? So this is how the money is calculated that you're going to earn, Knox County Schools. So it's sent to the district, and then the district allocates in the best way it sees fit. So, the question with this new model is it's a student-based model, and what we've been told, again, it's nothing official, what we've been told is it would operate still much the same way. There's this notion that the dollars follow the students, and it would, which leads to the fear that you just mentioned, that, oh, geez, okay, I'll take my money and go to a private school or whatever. The state has told us, and yes, it's unofficial, but what we have been told, it was actually in a pretty sizable meeting that we were at, and so other districts were there too, that it follows the student when they say that only to the extent of how it works in the formula. So it's not about, okay, here's your base model. Every student gets $6,000, but then we're going to tack on some more money if the child is economically disadvantaged, or maybe the students with disabilities or ELL component, something like that, then you get more. So it's not like, okay, this school X has X number of students with disabilities. It has X number of economically disadvantaged kids. And so here's your pool of money. You must distribute it at that particular school based on the demographics of that school. We've been told that's not how it's going to work. It's going to work somewhat like BEP. It'll come into the district, and then the district has the discretion and autonomy to allocate accordingly.
Right, but it's still going to be the same way that the BEP does, where it's based on enrollment, not based on number of eligible kids in the county. So for those
correct.
So for those parents who already have their kids in private school, they won't be their head count won't contribute to Knox County schools, just like it doesn't now. Because again, that's one of those little things when I get into arguments about vouchers with people that everybody likes to get a little bit conflated on, is that if your student, if you live in Knox County and your kids don't go to a Knox County schools doesn't get funding because they're in Knox County. They only get funding if they're enrolled and active in the school.
Correct.
Okay.
Or enrolled. Yeah, active is, it kind of gets into attendance, but enrolled.
Technical term, you're right. Yes. Okay.
I just want to make that.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. Because again, I think, like it feels to me like this is one of those steps in the process for vouchers if Governor Lee gets reelected and he gets another chance to do it. Because I think on the politics side of this, I think the elections this summer or I guess this fall for the state level stuff is going to be either an approval of what we're doing with the school stuff or disapproval, or at least it's going to be taken as such, whether it's factually true or not. It's going to be taken as such. And so Governor Lee wins again. He's going to say, well, I told you I was planning on doing this. You voted me back in. I'm going to do this. And so I'm trying to figure out how, again, like I said, it feels to me like this is a preparatory step towards that, because then he can say, okay, well, you want to send your kids to CAK. Here's the 5,100 or whatever the number settles on for your student that you can go spend over there. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know. I haven't talked to Governor Lee myself. He's a little bit above my pay grade so far. I'm working on it. I'll get there. But that's what it feels like is the process here. And it makes sense to me. I mean, at least on the logical point, whether we can argue about charter schools and all that kind of crap till the cows come home. But at least on a logical standpoint, it makes sense to me. That's go ahead.
And again, I couldn't speculate. I can tell you that what you outlined there is the concern around the state amongst districts. Now,
well, I guess the question for me on why
they told us that's not the case, but
the question for me is that as a district, why is that a concern that you might lose students?
Because when you so here's the thing. So it depends on. I hate to say it this way, but when a student leaves, that funding doesn't come in nice, neat little packages either, right? So let's say it's disproportionately you lose that funding to more affluent, to the more affluent schools, right, or the more affluent students that come from more affluent families, right. So if it may cost. I'm just speaking in general terms.
Right, I understand.
So let's say for a school out west, it may actually cost $4,000 per child. That may be what the cost is after you add up, because those schools are larger, they're more efficient, right? Because you can the grades are the students in each classroom. There's larger classroom sizes. Schools, however, in more of the at-risk schools, more supports are needed. And so we may be spending $10,000 per child at a particular school that's in one of our at-risk schools that has a higher level of economically disadvantaged children, right? So let's say we're spending $4,000 out at a more affluent school. We're spending $10,000 in an inner city school. And let's say that one of those students out west, they take, if they're allowed to take, hey, I've got $7,000 I can spend here, right? Then that means we would have to overcome that gap in funding,
right?
Because then it would.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. If we're going to simplify the math, it would be, we'll say it costs $4,000 and $9,000. They're getting $7,000 to take wherever they choose to go. So that's a $3,000 difference. So that $3,000 and again, best term I can think of, it's not the best, but it's not the correct term. It's not indicative of what you're actually doing. But essentially, what the county's doing is skimming $3,000 off of that more affluent school district or more affluent portion of the school district, and then pushing those funds into where it's needed more. And so
that's correct.
If a student from the more affluent school pulls the full $7,000, you're going to make up that $3,000
correct.
that was going over here somewhere else.
That's correct. And so the ones that typically suffer in situations like that would be their most at-risk population. And so we're very transparent, though, and always are about where the money goes. So we go through a staffing allocation model every year that we present to the board along with the budget.
Right. And I apologize for the use of the word skim. I didn't mean it in a dirty way. It's,
no, I get it.
We've talked about it a number of different times. Because again, I think, but I guess the question is going to be is when that happens, or if that were to happen, since we're on hypotheticals now, if that were to happen, I would assume that some of the it's basically bringing the average income of the school down in the more affluent portion, and it will probably actually need more than its original $4,000 because the affluent parents are going. Those affluent parents who would go do PTO stuff and donate a bunch of money, which would get a bunch of stuff taken care of that the county didn't have to because of the way it currently works. So again, I think this goes back to a point of clarification, which again, none of this is in stone yet, but the point of clarification is that if Billy is at West or if Billy is at South Doyle, if the state says $6,000, it goes to Knox County Schools, not to the school that Billy's at.
Correct. Okay. That's the information we've been given.
Okay, because I think that is an important little detail for me, at least, as far as that specific discussion about the eventual voucher conversation to come along with it.
Right.
Woo! Math and stuff. I love it. Because again, I don't know, all the talk that I've heard, a lot of the people that I've seen commenting on it are really not happy about this TISA thing. And one thing is it's in the vacuum of, well, it seems to be TISA compared to whatever they think is perfect, not TISA compared to what we have. And I think that's the first thing we need to do. We need to recognize that the BEP is terrible and super confusing. Not that this one is less confusing per se, but it seems to be that there's at least going to be a larger total number at the end of the day.
It sure looks that way. And so the state has been very transparent in saying there's an additional $1 billion. And again, if you allocate that across the million kids or the million students, that would say that, the state is contributing an extra $1,000 per student. That's very significant.
Right.
Again, though, what does that, what are the levers though that would generate that kind of funding? And again, I can tell you one of my biggest concerns is going forward. So, we can, I'm throwing this number out. I don't know what it's going to be. Knox County will say $50 million. And so then we implement the initiatives, very strategic in how we allocate those funds and the strategies or the educational programs that we would implement. What happens though that if the following year you're only getting you're getting an insignificant increase, and it's not even it won't even cover inflationary cost. I mean, it can be a struggle at times just through the years since I've worked here in trying to balance the budget, just trying to meet inflationary costs. Fortunately, the last couple of years have been better because the sales tax did not fall off the cliff like so many economists were fearing, and we did budget really conservatively, so that served us really well. But I can remember multiple years where we were really grappling with just meeting inflationary costs when we were talking about a far less significant sized budget. So if you can maybe implement all of this stuff, but if you don't have sufficient resources going forward to keep them going,
right,
then that's a huge problem.
Right, because personally, I think I think the labor market has changed, period. I think the idea of $50,000 a year for anything, quote, full-time is not enough anymore. I think moving forward, I
get it.
The amateur economist that I am says over the next 5 years, I would say that we're going to average probably 10 to 20% across the board in average base pay for everything. Whether it's whether it's what currently is $10 an hour, which isn't anymore. I mean, like I drove by a Chick-fil-A, they were hiring at 15. You know, and
I get it.
If Chick-fil-A is hiring at 15, I got a quote professional job that I get paid like 19. I'd rather go play around in chicken all day than do what I do for a couple bucks less.
And that's part of the that's the challenge that we ourselves are facing. That we need a lot of tutors, we need a lot of educational assistants, and we need teachers. It hasn't been as challenging as some of these lower paid positions. But just to keep the operations going. And you're right. If you're talking about cleaning toilets, do I want to do that, or when I can make more somewhere else? So we get it. We've significantly, and we're going to try it again with this budget.
Right? Because what sucks about it,
more into those lower paid jobs to try to bring them up.
Right. What sucks about it to me is like be the first to the table. Like if you could pull off inside the budget to be the first to the table to say, hey, look, everybody else is 55, we're going to 65. It's a crazy big number, but then we're going to steal all the best from every other county, every other district in the state, because they're going to come flocking here for the significantly more money and the significantly less cost of living, and then the whole state catches up eventually because they're going to have to. But then we just retain all the good ones and we weed the bad ones out, and they go back and get paid more at these other county schools. But we can't do that because of the way the budget works.
Well, and obviously resources are not unlimited. I mean, you get that, but so one of our goals for our teachers is for us to get into the top 20 in the state. Like I said, we're in salaries, and we have made strides there. But to show you just the enormous amount of cost it would require, let's say if we wanted to raise salaries up to a level that gets us, kind of like what you're saying, that gets us, let's say, into the top 10. You're probably looking at an additional $50 million just right off the bat, just to do that with teacher salaries. It's about
that sounds like how much we're going to get in addition next year. Yeah. Me and you, we figured it out together.
So again, it's a lot, and I mean we have 5,000 teachers, something like that, and we're always trying, with the Superintendent Thomas. That's been one of his priorities from the very beginning, that we want to raise teacher salaries. We have made significant strides in that area, but one thing that complicates it, makes it even more difficult, is as we're giving salary increases, other districts are not standing still. They're giving their teachers salary increases as well.
Right.
So you're having to kind of overcome that engine that never stops.
Right. So why weren't you on the short list for new superintendents? I thought we talked about this.
No, I'm happy doing what I'm doing here.
I mean, are you excited about Ryswick? I
think he'll be really good. Yeah, he's he's a long time educator. John's he's really bright. Has a lot of great ideas. Well liked. Not afraid to do things differently. So yeah, I mean, I think people are happy with the pick.
I'm interested. I'm curious. I don't I fumble all over trying to figure out who sits where on what and who's because these are big machines you guys are operating here, for lack of a better word. There's lots of parts, there's lots of moving parts and pieces, and as head of the machine as you can be doesn't mean how the toes work, for lack of a better word. They just I'm trying to figure all this out, and then the school board at the same time, and the weird elected part, and then interacting with parents and all this kind of different back and forth. It's I don't know, it's fascinating. It scares the crap out of me, but it's fascinating. Okay, so I'm trying to think if I missed anything on the potential future budget part of the conversation. Because I think that's important. Like I said, I think it's an electability issue. I think this is going to be conversation for elected officials, even though it's already passed by the time we are voting on it. Because I think I really think that, if, like I said, for most of what I've heard is a lot of people are complaining about it and saying it's not very good. It's not going to be funding the way they think it's going to be funding. They're lying about what they're saying, blah, 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 blah. Well, when it turns around, and I mean, I don't get the choice because Eddie decided he's stepping out. But if Eddie votes for it and he is continuing to run, how I feel about that vote is going to be a major one on my decision to vote for him again. Now, again, I can't do that because Eddie's stepping aside, which I'm bummed about. But
yeah, I am too. I will tell you, he's been a great partner for us. He's been contacts me a lot and others a lot when bills are coming up and wants our input. So he's going to be missed. Yeah.
So anyway, you were about to tell me something that we missed that we wanted to say.
Oh no, I was just going to add one thing, that there's also a component in the TISA model where there's additional dollars for students that reside in sparsely populated areas,
right?
Which would speak to some of the rural things. And there's also an outcomes-based portion of that. I don't know what that would look like. That's not in the base, but it would be dollars on top. It essentially is to, incentivize, academic, outcomes. But I think districts are already incentivized over that. I think the thing that maybe is a little cause for concern is you don't have enough information on what that might look like. I know there's a focus, at least what we've been told, on literacy in college and career readiness. But we know that academic outcomes are heavily influenced by student demographics, right? So, I mean,
we've talked about this, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We're still trying to get our arms around what that might look like. So, anyway.
Because again, it's one of those questions I ask. I know this is out of your field of focus or whatever you want to call it, but what does the state consider a win in a student's career?
Right.
Going to college, I don't know. Is that a win?
Well, yeah, that maybe, but there's. I think anytime we talk about that, also there's the career readiness component where maybe that's a win too. Even if they don't go to college, it's a.
See, I think we need to knock off junior and senior year of high school as a requirement, and that's when we let the more focus go full in. If you want to stay your junior and senior year, we can get you vocational studies, we can get you college readiness courses, whatever. But if you're just going to go do whatever with the rest of your life, graduate at 16, get out of the way, let us save that money and spend it on kids that want to use it. That's where I'm at.
Well, it's all about. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's all about getting the kids ready and whatever. If they, if it's college, fine. If it's another career path, that's fine too. Let's do everything we can to help kids be ready for that.
Right, but like I said, like that's one of the things to me that I like. That I know they have the TN Ready program, and I know there's Operation Grad and some of these other different things that are like kind of snapshots of what we want a student to be. Right. But like, I just feel like that I don't. It's like third grade reading. What is it? Sixth grade math, and then SAT prep, and that's like those are the major whatevers, and it's like, well, is that what we want our students to be? And I don't hear that conversation on what we want a student to be.
Well, that's a good philosophical
right. Again, like I said, I know this is out of your field, but again, I think it's it absolutely impacts how you spend money and what we're doing with it.
And it kind of goes along a little. So we're in partnership with Ford Next Generation. Mm-hmm. And it's more or less about. I'm not really involved in those conversations. It's more curriculum, obviously more curriculum and instruction based, but it's they're really diving into that, like reimagine our schools is a theme there, and what does that look like? So they're meeting, working closely with our folks. They've engaged the business community as well. So I think some of what you're saying, maybe some of that discussion is happening at the table now.
Yeah.
And reimagine our schools that, okay.
Here's one. Why do we go 6-3-4 in schools? 6 years, 3 years, 4 years.
Beats me. it's just the model, right? So, and we know, what's the difference? But I mean, now you're really outside my turf. But okay, junior high versus middle school. When I was a kid, it was.
Oh, I thought they were the same thing.
6-2-4 when I was. We didn't even have. I'm so old. I didn't even go to kindergarten. Right? I just started right in the first grade. So it was actually 6-2-4.
Right.
And so
or 5-2-4 for you.
Well, it was one. It was 1 through 6.
Uh-huh.
It was 1 through 6 for me in elementary school, and then it was 7 and 8 in middle school, and then it was 4 in high school. So.
That's weird. Real weird. But again, I don't know. It's just always one of those things that I think about every once in a while. It just kind of pops in my head. It's like, especially my oldest is a 5th grader now, and I'll go pick him up from school, and it's like all the 5th graders are giants among little people. And and we went to we went to his orientation at the middle school, and like this kid that's an 8th grader is giving us a tour, and my 5th grader is like 2 inches shorter than him. And it's like, this is the building he should be in because these are the like-sized people. Not that size matters in this conversation. There's another joke. I'll leave that alone. But again, like, I don't know, to go back to it, because I think, and again, this goes into politics again, which I know isn't your wheelhouse or whatever, but I think there is a larger political thing at play that strongly impacts the schools that we don't talk about enough. And it's like you said earlier, it's the demographics of the surrounding of the school have more impact than the money. And as far as outcomes.
Here's kind of the way I would phrase it is, okay, let me answer it this way. So we took a look at the 5 largest districts in the state. Mm-hmm. Knox is one of those. Metro, Shelby, Hamilton County, and Chattanooga, and Rutherford, it's Murfreesboro area. And it's interesting that the largest spenders per pupil,
the lowest outcome.
It's disproportionate to the outcome, and when you dive into that, you'll see that the demographics of Shelby County, there's more money is spent there for needed supports. I'm not speaking against that, but but yet the outcomes of the 5, so they're the largest and they spend the most money per kid, but they're number 1 out of the 5, but they're 5th in outcomes. Right. And Nashville was number 2 in spending, and they were 4th in outcomes.
Right. And we were 3 and 3.
Was 3, and we were 3rd. Right. And so I think we're 3rd, or actually maybe 2nd, actually. But it depends on the what you're looking at, whether it's ACT scores, graduation rate, proficiency, or whatever. So in some areas we were actually number 2. But here's the thing: it's disparate. It is absolutely proportionate to the demographics, as you say, and so the spending is disproportionate often. But so spending, you can't spend your way to academic excellence, right? But go try to do anything without the money, right?
But I guess to me, what I'm saying is like the extra money spent on supports inside the schools needs to be matched with extra supports outside the schools to help this with the demographic issue. Like, how do we get less? I mean, it's as dumb as it sounds. It's like, how do we get less poverty? How do we get more people above the poverty line? Because that's going to have more impact on the success rate of our schools than any amount of money in the school is. Yeah, economic
development in our poorer areas.
Yeah,
would go a long ways.
And I mean, I need to run for an office because that's the pitch. It's like, I'm going to build a baseball stadium down here because your kids are going to be smarter because of it. And here I can prove it. Here's the data. Because we need parents to be in the home and working and have jobs that can afford, food and such, so that they can spend some time helping their kids with school, and that we're going to have better outcomes on that than we are on massive amounts of spending on stuff inside the building.
There's no question there's societal issues. It's systemic, related things. And yeah, I mean, the school system can't fix every problem. We've the students are in our care, during the day, but after that, they're not. And so I think, I mean, this is just my personal belief that if great strides could be made to help communities overcome poverty, that would just make huge differences in academic outcomes.
Right. And, it raises tax base, so we have more money to spend in schools anyway. But there's always more to it. Oh, I just had a thought and I lost it. Dang it. It was going to be good too. I was really feeling good about the thought I just had. Man. All right. Well, it'll come to me later, and I'll feel like an idiot because I forgot it on spot. But that's how I work. All right, man. I mean, I think this topic specifically is very important for this election coming up. And that's why I wanted to make the time. How's the new office?
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah.
You got really nice. You got a view back there, or are you looking at the other building?
No, I actually got a view. I'm on the 6th floor. So KCS is on floors 1 through. Well, we have a little bit. So the plaza level is like the first floor, and so we do have air attendance department down there. So we're primarily on 1 through 6, and UT is on 7 through 12. They're not only a portion of that I think has been completed. So there's some of those floors that have been occupied, but there's still some that haven't.
So you're looking down over Market Square, or are you looking towards the old city? Where are you looking at?
Actually Market Square would be. Okay. So I'm looking south.
And you got a corner. You got a corner office too. I hear what you're saying.
I got a corner, and then behind me would be Gay Street.
All right, so Big Ears Festival is a cool place to hang out up there, watch the show, watch people moving around. Yeah, I get it. All right, I see what's going on. I like it. I'm jealous a little bit.
I'll come and visit.
Okay, I need to make a point now that we're allowed to be out in public again. I do need to make a point to go. I've got probably like 20 invites for different things from interviews I've had of people wanting to show off their own office. But the other thing, I don't know. We'll leave this for off here. Never mind. So I don't know. That's what I got. That's what I was trying to figure out. Like I said, I think this is going to be a specifically loud topic. It should be, maybe is a better way to say it. And maybe I'm missing the mark on what it will be. But this should be a fairly loud topic for these elections, both in the school board races as well as the state legislation, because I think we're talking the majority of most local budgets. And how this is going to change a lot of the ways that we have to deal with it. And I think it's important that people have some understanding of what the potential is and, who's going to vote on these. Again, I get the bummer of being an 18 where I got to pick somebody new no matter what. But I'm still going to ask them about it. And as I understand more about it, how they feel about this and whether they want to go put a stop to it or not may change the way I vote in this election. I think that's important. So, Ron McPherson, everybody. I don't know what else to say, man. It's always a fun show with you.
Oh, yeah. It's always great to be here. Thanks.
We need to do one where we just get a bunch of charts with a bunch of numbers and stuff on it. And and we just leave those up on the screen. We don't even talk about them, but we just leave those up on the screen to confuse people because it'll be fun that way.
Maybe use 10 keys while we talk.
Yeah, I can. I mean, like you're on hold at like whenever you call AT&T or whatever to get your phone service worked on, and then you're talking to the computer, but that makes the clicking noise like they're typing stuff in. Yeah, we can do that. I can make that happen. All right, man. Well, I'll let you get back to your day. I'm going to do an outro. I appreciate you, Ron. It's always fun to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, friend.
Thanks, folks.
Take care.
Ron McPherson, everybody. Like I told you, we're gonna get melt some brains, try to figure out what's going on with school board stuff. Whatever. Crap, I'm screwing this up. Anyway, we're Almost in Agreement. AlmostInAgreement@gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, AlmostInAgreement.com. While you're there, check out my Election Guide 22. Election Guide 22 is going to give you a list of everybody, what seat they're running for, what district they're in, all those kind of things, as well as links to their website, as well as my interview with them if I've had one. On that page also is KGIS and Election Commission. Go to those places to get information on where you're voting, what district you're in, whether or not you're correctly registered. Those kind of things are all available there. It also tells you who your current reps are for all of these different things as well. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Hit us up there. Later this week, the big announcement comes out, and you'll see it, and I'll start really talking about it once it's officially on the books. But I'm really excited. A new project drops on Sunday, so be on the lookout for that as well. We're Almost in Agreement, AlmostInAgreement.com. Podcast providers, like, share, friend, tell your friends about us, that whole thing. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.